And we've now moved to camera 3. Funny that they all died at Section 3 of the Third Geneva Convention. Labor of prisoners of war. Interesting coincidence. Article 49. The detaining power may utilize the labor of prisoners of war who are physically fit, taking into account their age, sex, rank, and physical aptitude, and with a view particularly to maintaining them in a good state of physical and mental health, meaning you don't get to mentally break them. Non-commissioned officers who are prisoners of war shall only be required to do supervisory work. Those not so required may ask for other suitable work, which shall, so as far possible, be found for them. If officers or persons of equivalent status ask for suitable work, it shall be found for them, so far as possible, but they may in no circumstances be compelled to work. Article 50. Besides work connected with camp administration, installation, or maintenance, prisoners of war may be compelled to do only such work as includes the following classes: A. Agriculture. B. Industries connected with the production or extraction of raw materials and the manufacturing industries, with the exception of metallurgical and machinery and chemical industries. Public works and building operations which have no military character or purpose. C. Transportation and handling of stores which are not military in character or purpose. D. Commercial business and arts and crafts. E. Domestic service. F. Public utility services having no military character or purpose. Should the above provisions be infringed, prisoners of war shall be allowed to exercise their right of complaint in conformity with Article 78. Article 51. Prisoners of war must be granted suitable working conditions, especially as regards accommodation, food, clothing, and equipment. Such conditions shall not be inferior to those enjoyed by nationals of the detaining power employed in similar work. Account shall also be taken of climatic conditions. The detaining power, in utilizing the labor of prisoners of war, shall ensure that in areas in which prisoners are employed, the national legislation concerning the protection of labor and more, particularly the regulations for the safety of workers, are duly applied. You still can't escape OSHA, bitches. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Prisoners of war shall receive training and be provided with the means of protection suitable to the work they will have to do and similar to those accorded to the nationals of the detaining power. Subject to the provisions of Article 52, prisoners may be submitted to the normal risks run by civilian workers. Conditions of labor shall in no case be rendered more arduous by disciplinary measures. Article 52. Unless he be a volunteer, no prisoner of war may be employed on labor which is of an unhealthy or dangerous nature. No prisoner of war shall be assigned to labor which would be looked upon as humiliating for a member of the detaining power's own forces. The removal of mines or similar devices shall be considered dangerous labor. In regards to the removal of mines, the Ukrainian farmers have come up with a brilliant way to remove mines. You should check it out. Article 52. Unless he be a volunteer, no prisoner of war may be employed on labor which is of an unhealthy or dangerous nature. No prisoner of war shall be assigned to labor which would be looked upon as humiliating or the detaining powers forces. The removal of mines or similar devices shall be considered as dangerous labor. Article 53. The duration of the daily labor of prisoners of war, including the time of the journey to and from, shall not be excessive, and must in no case exceed that permitted for civilian workers in the district who are nationals of the detaining power and employed in the same work. Prisoners of war must be allowed, in the middle of the day's work, a rest of not less than 1 hour. This rest will be the same as that to which workers of the detaining power are entitled, if the latter is of longer duration. They shall be allowed, in addition, a rest of 24 consecutive hours every week, preferably on Sunday or the day of rest in their country of origin. Furthermore, every prisoner who has worked for 1 year shall be granted a rest of 8 consecutive days, during which his working pay shall be paid him. Yeah, you have to pay them. You don't just get to employ slave labor. If the methods of labor, such as piecework, are employed, the length of the working period shall not be rendered excessive thereby. Article 54. Article 54. The working pay due to prisoners of war shall be fixed in accordance with the provisions of Article 62 of the present Convention. Prisoners of war who sustain accidents in connection with work or who contract a disease in the course or in consequence of the work shall receive all the care their condition may require. The detaining power shall furthermore deliver to such prisoners of war a medical certificate enabling them to submit their claim to the power on which they depend, and shall send a duplicate to the Central Prisoners of War Agency provided for in Article 123. Article 55. The fitness of prisoners of war for work shall be periodically verified by medical examinations at least once a month. The examinations shall have a particular regard to the nature of the work which the prisoners of war are required to do. If any prisoner of war considers himself incapable of working, he shall be permitted to appear before the medical authorities of his camp. Physicians, surgeons, Physicians or surgeons may recommend that the prisoners who are, in their opinion, unfit for work be exempted therefrom. Article 56. The organization and the administration of labor detachments shall be similar to those of prisoner of war camps. Every labor detachment shall remain under the control of and administratively part of a prisoner of war camp. The military authorities and the commander of said camp shall be responsible under the direction of their government for the observance of the provisions of the present convention in labor detachments. The camp commander shall keep an up-to-date record of all labor detachments dependent on his camp and shall communicate it to the delegates of the protecting power of the International Committee of the Red Cross or of other agencies giving relief to prisoners of war who may visit the camp. Article 57. The treatment of prisoners of war who work for private persons, even if the latter are responsible for guarding and protecting them, shall not be inferior to that which is provided for by the present convention. The detaining power, the military authorities, and the commander of the camp to which such prisoners belong shall be entirely responsible for the maintenance, care, treatment, and payment of the working pay of such prisoners of war. Such prisoners of war shall have the right to remain in communication with the prisoner's representative in the camps on which they depend.